I'm going to take it now to a question for Larissa. In your film, For a Better Life, we see the anti-immigrant sentiment tackled head on. And you also highlighted difficulties many immigrants face when they come to this country and are trying to achieve that American dream. Share with us why tackling such a hot button social issue was important to you and what you hope people take away from it.
Hi, are you guys hearing me?
Yes.
Okay, yes. So my inspiration for a better life came from my aunt who lives in New York. And she was telling me about a story, where she was working. She was working among many people of the same color and also with some white people. So she got most of her trouble from the Black people, right? Most of her struggles and challenges came from them, and like they didn't really welcome her as a Guyanese into the workplace. So I got the inspiration from her, and even talking with some other people about their experience about being immigrating to Guyana, immigrating to the US. They had similar issues about, people not really people of their own race not accepting them. So that's one of the major point when I wanted to do that. And also, I think at the time when I was writing the script, I think Trump was elected president, and there were so many really horrible stories about immigrants, on the train, people, beating immigrants and all these things. So all of that, that's where the inspiration comes from. And the message, I hope, is that people know that America is like sometimes I would even say that people looking for a better life. Everyone wants a better life, and like the PSA said, there's a place for everyone. So, and that is the message, and no matter what race you are, even if you're the same race, there's a place for everyone, and people should be accepted no matter what the differences are. Yes.
Right. So there's a place for everyone, as you mentioned. So I know that our audience members definitely have some questions that they would probably like to ask our filmmakers. So if you have a question, please don't be afraid to drop that in the chat. We want to get in as many questions as we can, and we don't have a lot of time. So we want to make sure that if you have a question to pose to one of our filmmakers, please do so now, and I will get some of those questions read. So feel free to do that. Larissa, I want to thank you so much for that response. And I had thought about that a little bit. At what time were you writing this script in terms of tackling such a hot button issue head on, and, talking about the presidential administration at the time definitely makes sense in your aunt's experiences. So now I'm going to move on, and I'm keeping my eyes on the chat. So if you have a question, please ask. Yes, I see someone in the comments saying, so enlightening to see the Guyanese touch in the filmmaking. And yes, the Guyanese touch stands out through and through. And that's something that I think was really special in each thing, whether it was the interactions, the lingo, just seeing things on the wall, seeing Lima Call, seeing, little things throughout the films. That was amazing. So I would like to move on then to a question for Ray. In your film, The Hunt, the Ole Higue, is typically a tale of a woman who we see, she's old, she's, maybe not the best to look at. And in your film, instead, the Ole Higue is someone young, beautiful, and vibrant. And I wanted to know about what made you make that choice to kind of switch things up in that way and kind of re-represent the Ole Higue story.
I'm a bit nervous. I'm nervous in panels, but I'll answer still. I kind of just was trying to put a human face to it more than anything else. And so, they can be old hikers because they age, at least in the mythology that I was creating. But it just so happens that these ones were young. They have not aged as yet. So that's why you kind of saw it like that, because I just wrote them as human beings. And yeah. that's to answer your question.
And we have a follow-up question for you that says that I found that Jean and her friend who accepted themselves as Ole Higues, what is the importance of them being queer or lesbian?
Okay, well, to be honest, there is no importance. There's gay Ole Higues and there's straight Ole Higues, and this one just kind of just happens to be gay. And also accepts herself for being who she is, which is an Ole Higue. So she just enjoys eating children and she accepts that.
She accepts who she is, and then we see, of course, different representations throughout the film. So we saw the young woman, we saw Jean and her partner. So we saw all those things. So that representation in the film. But thank you for that explanation and letting us know how you, because I was so interested in seeing how you kind of presented the Ole Higue story that I've grown up hearing about for so many years. So it was an interesting take on it. Thank you so much for that. Kwesi, I want to come to you now. With the morning, we experience the importance of those morning rituals that as Guyanese, you know and love, and you do sometimes without even thinking about it. But you shot this film in a really unique way. Tell me about what did you want to get across with the style of filming that you chose?
This film literally was a ritual that I was going through that morning. Generally when I wake up, I kind of take a moment to unwind, to come together, to ground myself, to bring myself into some sort of spiritual reckoning, I guess. People would say meditation. And as you see within the film, there's this phrase that pops up on a painting. It's called "Spirit for a Spirit." And it's just a notion of that the idea of meditation, the idea of doing certain things that help to center yourself, those things allow you to communicate with a spiritual space or a spiritual nature that normally you wouldn't be able to access if you were sort of just, let's say you woke up and you just started off right away. You started off doing everything. You started off getting dressed, going to work, and all those things right away. So you don't have a compass basically of what's happening within the central psyche and the spiritual nature, and maybe just the aspects of just getting yourself ready for the world every day. And so for me, this film is just really communicating that idea of just what that can do for yourself, or just the idea of just contemplation, that we should carve out a piece of that for our natures every day at some point, at some time. And then the way the film was shot, I usually don't write scripts or anything. Usually I'm just off the cuff, meaning I just come up with an idea and then I start shooting. So this is how this film was shot, whereby I said I woke up in the morning and I made my tea, and I had my little smoke. And so within those moments, I am just recording as it goes along.
You were recording your ritual,
yeah,
and giving us your ritual as you went along.
Yes, and it was me and my girlfriend. So I shot her parts, and then she shot my parts. So that's how it was done.
Awesome.
Sorry about the interruption before.
Oh, no problem at all. Listen, we're in the virtual space. We know how to make it work and shift and adjust. So we thank you so much for that. I want to keep it moving. We're getting some comments in the chat, but also want to know if you have any other questions. We want to make sure that this is your time to ask our filmmakers those questions. We only have a couple of minutes left. But one thing I do want to mention that I saw in the chat, and I think it's important that we bring this back up. So Gary says, it is inspirational that we have Guyanese filmmakers that can provide experiences that all Guyanese can associate with. I was particularly moved by Miss Nicholson's For a Better Life and Miss Harris's Doll Thomas. So to that point of providing experiences that all Guyanese can relate to, these are all very different films, but as we talked about, we can see those things that all Guyanese can associate with throughout the films in different ways. Why was that so important to you, to each of you as Guyanese filmmakers? You did it in different ways, but we definitely saw elements of things that all Guyanese could relate to. And anyone can answer first.
For me, it is important to, to show where you're from, because for Guyana, we're now, we're new to the film industry. We can say we're quite new, even though we've been for a couple of years, and that representation matters for me. It's important, like putting that medallion spirit and that lime call. That's something that I grew up with, and many people I know would have been able to relate to that. Say, oh, I know that my grandmother had that or used that. So representing, so showing that and representing, this is from Guyana. That was important to me to let people, as soon as you see that, you have that connection, you have that link. So that's why I wanted to do that and place that prop there.
And then also that from what I got from that, it was just the extension of the cultural language that brought into the now, and and then also memory. So it's like preserving memory, because these things are actually slowly slipping away,
getting away,
moving as we're moving into this modernized space. And for me, being a filmmaker, it's about self-representation. Being a Guyanese filmmaker is to, again, also that's another aspect of setting an example to other fellow Guyanese artists that are seeking to create, that are seeking inspiration, that are seeking examples of self that allows them to sort of have a motivation. And here we are all of us presenting our films, and I loved every one of the films that I saw this evening. So congratulations to you guys, congratulations to us. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Any comments from Mandy or Ray in terms of the importance of kind of incorporating those elements that all Guyanese can associate with throughout your films?
I don't know if I can answer that question exactly, but what I loved about this program and watching all of your films is just like the unexpected familiarity there too, of even just like Larissa, the casting of the grandmother is like so familiar and so like tender and beautiful, and just seeing all of these, it brought up like unexpected emotions and unexpected connections, even though they're all such different films. So I found that very moving.
Yeah.
So yeah, congratulations to everyone. You all did amazing.
Thank you. And Ray, I actually have an audience question for you. And this question says, could it be that the Ole Higues are trying to remind us that separating the so-called spiritual from the so-called secular might be a form of self-genocide, racial or cultural suicide? Just a wild thought. Can you respond to that? I know we put you on the spot.
Can you just repeat it for me, please?
Sure. She says, could it be that the Ole Higues are trying to remind us that separating the so-called spiritual from the so-called secular might be a form of self-genocide, racial and cultural suicide? That's just a wild thought she had, and I wanted to know if you could respond to that. And she says, okay, anyone can respond, but I'd like for you to respond with your thoughts on what Charlene has said.
Okay. To be honest, I really wasn't thinking that's what it meant, really. But I guess like for me, like we have like different kind of rhetoric when it comes to the issue of abortion. And so it's not always easy, even though it's not always easy for like the mother and the father. And sometimes when we have these conversations, we kind of forget the other person, which is So I just wanted to show like a very complex story. That's of all the stuff that Miss Wilkinson mentioned. So yeah, but I'm a person whereby if my audience can find meaning, then I'm all for it. So
Definitely.
wonderful.
Yeah.
In terms of the other question you had asked, yeah, it was really just I kind of like hearing my accent on the screen because we consume so much media that's not Guyanese, you know? And so when I saw that Lima Call and that mentalistic spirit, I didn't thought it would have given me so much joy. I was just like, oh, like Lima Call mentally.
It felt like home. I thought about my grandmother and I thought
Mm.
about all the little tables she used to have with her sewing kit. And then next to it was the Lima Call, methylated spirits, Vicks, or everything. So it felt like home looking at that.
And Farrell.
So I would like to thank our wonderful filmmakers for joining us this evening. This has been what a great way to start off the 6th edition of the Tamari Film Festival. We want to thank you all. If there are no more questions from our audience, we will have to wrap this Q&A up. Again, I'm Melissa Noel, multimedia journalist. It has been my pleasure to moderate this discussion. And I'd like for our audience to please give some virtual applause for all of our amazing Guyanese filmmakers who are here with us this evening. So drop some applause in the chat, people. Thank you so much for joining us, for your questions, for your time. And thank you to our filmmakers for kicking us off with the feeling of home and kicking us off with different ways of presenting things that we can all relate to and things that we can all learn from. So thank you all again. Good night and keep on. This is just the first night of the Tamari Film Festival. So let's keep it going on this note. As great note to start things off.
And hey, and thank you all. And just so you know, panelists, your friends are shouting you out in the chat. So, give them some love too. But thank you. It was a good program, and I enjoyed the conversation that you all had. And I especially liked how you all were talking to each other. So it would be good if after this some connections come out of this, because that's also part of why we do what we do.
Process.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for having us.
Yes.
And I appreciate it.
All right.
All right.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.